Hello everyone, welcome to a tense military moment. The young army officers, seeing this condition, got as excited as winning the lottery and rushed to confront Annan. Nonetheless, the emperor agreed to Allah's demands, hoping Annan would pacify the agitated army, unaware that young officers plotted a coup secretly. They were ready to cut off the palace's contact with the outside world, capturing those who wanted to surrender because today was a day for battle. A clear-headed officer suggested obtaining the army minister's authorization first, then they barged into Annan's home, demanding to fight on. Annan knew these folks were crazy. If something went awry, all chaos would break loose, so he decided to He advised them not to act rashly and decided to attend the cabinet meeting vote first. A good strategy needs the cabinet's approval before As expected, almost everyone agreed to surrender. Annan called the army ministry and pulled a fast one on these young officers. This move bought time, but as Annan returned to the army ministry, shocking news broke. The army would announce in 30 minutes. Oh no, this is bad. He realized the matter fell to the chief of staff, but even he was in the dark. Annan could either. These kids weren't ready to back down, so Annan had to dash back to the army ministry. He knew that if the young officers wanted to stir things up, they'd need enough troops. So, he called in the leaders of the Jinwei Corps and Tokyo's main force. He urged them to put the big picture first and not to let the young officers win. On August 14th at noon, Emperor Hirohito called a cabinet meeting. He announced that he would issue a surrender edict. Upon hearing the news, the officers quickly found Annan. The crisis was imminent. Upon learning that Emperor Hirohito had decided to surrender, the beliefs of these young officers popped like a soap bubble. Higher-ups reached a consensus, yet the young officers, poisoned by militarism, couldn't face this reality. They planned a joint move, with Tanaka representing the young officers at Eastern Army Command. He attempted to persuade the commander to dispatch troops against surrender factions, but found head got Annan's orders. It's the 14th afternoon, less than 20 HRS left before the 15th noon surrender. Sensing trouble, even among army personnel against surrender, many compromised and burned documents for surrender. Unwilling to fail, Tanaka returned to the army ministry. He decided to take a risky move. Meanwhile, the high-ranking cabinet members were still bickering over the wording of the surrender edict, trying to reclaim a bit of dignity. The navy minister didn't want to keep dragging this out, but he noticed something odd on his way back. More than a few head-scratching soldiers were roaming the streets. Subordinates reported the situation to him, aiming to expedite the implementation of the final surrender edict. The Navy minister hurried back to the cabinet meeting, regardless of the wording. Just get that surrender edict out ASAP. Meanwhile, the junior officers were still secretly plotting a coup. These officers began drafting orders for the Imperial Guard. They deceived the commander of the Imperial Guard's infantry to take immediate action. At the same time, cabinet members finally signed off on the surrender edict. Thinking the tide was turning in his favor, Annan was now saying his goodbyes to Linmu as the emperor was preparing to record the surrender edict. The emperor was set to broadcast it nationwide at noon the next day. Time went until the night of the 14th, when the young officers went to confront the Imperial Guard. They forced the commander to send troops to surround the palace, absolutely not allowing the surrender recording to air. Despite the young officers being all tough, the Imperial Guard obediently followed Annan's orders, and the clock ticked on. Meanwhile, the emperor finished recording, and the military situation was unstable. If all went well, they'd soon capture the targeted small nation. This decision successfully protected the recording. By early morning of the 15th, Minister Annan was shutting himself. He believed the army was responsible for Japan's failure, and thus he left a suicide note, preparing to end it all, while the young officers were still pressuring the commander to deploy troops. As the commander refused, their enthusiasm grew. Tanaka rushed in and saw the commander shot dead. At that moment, they knew there was no turning back. This group of junior officers forged orders and finally declared a rebellion. The commander, thinking the orders genuine, promptly sent troops to seize the emperor's surrender tape. Then they planned to sever the palace's ties to the outside world, quickly blocking every entrance. Everyone was barred from entering or exiting. By 2 a.m., the rebels had taken over the Tokyo radio station. They began searching for the emperor's recording, but the district commander discovered the palace's phones were cut off and they couldn't reach Minister Annan. At that moment, the rebels had already infiltrated the palace, the main hub for its communication. The rebels began to sabotage the communication systems. The commander waited outside the door, only to see Tanaka show. None of the high-ranking officials showed up. Upon learning the commander was a casualty, the officer realized he might have been used. The subtitles reveal that the rebels were attempting to locate the recording during the final few hours and carry out an interrogation of the emperor. But they found none. Then, they learned the recording remained in the palace, and rebels started searching. Meanwhile, the command post also made a phone connection with the rebels, and the chief of staff ordered the battalion commander to withdraw the troops. Meanwhile, Tanaka aimed for a final try. The deceived commander refused to sync with them. The rebels' defeat was nearly certain. However, these crazy young officers weren't ready to give up. They stormed Prime Minister Lin Mu's house, trying to capture him. But Lin Mu had hidden, so they set fire to the Prime Minister's residence. The rebels then went to the station, urging soldiers not to surrender. On the morning of the 15th, incited by rebels, a showdown erupted between them and the army at the radio station.